So, with the relative success of Battalion Wars 1, the GameCube sales notwithstanding, of course, Kuju Entertainment would begin work on Battalion Wars 2 for the Wii, right after completing their work for the first game. However, this would offer its own set of new challenges. For starters, motion controls. The Wii, if you didn't know or forgot, made motion controls its key fundamental feature. And although it was a success on the casual market, it was not the best implemented feature for most games. For example, how would you command your army? The Wiimote and Nunchuck have less buttons than a GameCube controller. So how hard would it be to give commands to your army? Well, surprisingly, Kuju was up to the task. As I said in the previous video, Battalion Wars 2 improves upon the previous game and actually fixes most of my problems I had with the original, with a few exceptions here and there. However, I won't be playing this game on original hardware, since my Wii decided dying would be the coolest shit ever. So I am being transparent with this. I am playing this on an emulator. Of course, I do own the game, and I can confirm that the motion controls were really good. But now, let's get into the game and see why it's better than the first. Surprisingly, starting the campaign drops us into a prologue 200 years before the current events. The prologue focuses on the final day of what is called the Lightning Wars, where the Iron Legion were about to take over the world. If you don't remember, the Iron Legion was a MacGuffin back in the first game that was only a part of 2 missions near the end of the game. But here, they are getting expanded upon in this game, which I appreciate. The prologue mission has us take control of a Solar Empire grunt, and are tasked to help escort a special doomsday weapon to the Legion's Iron Tower. However, before we get there, the strike force we were supposed to group up with gets killed by an Iron Legion bomber. With the death of the staff bearer, we take up the role, and the prologue becomes a power trip, as our little grunt takes on enemy veterans, gunships, heavy tanks, and even a battle station. If you don't remember, the battle station was the strongest ground unit in the game, and our little grunt, with the help of the staff, easily dispatches it. And with the help of other surviving grunts, we make it to the Iron Tower and activate the Doomsday Weapon, calling down an orbital bombardment of the tower and the Legion, destroying all of it and ending the Lightning Wars. So in one mission, we get an answer to what the hell the Iron Legion was, what this Power of the Sun comment was from Vlad back in the first game, and why there was a massive crater we had to fight in during the events of the first game. Turns out, the Solar Empire had a fucking death laser in orbit, and used it on the Iron Legion. This prologue did a lot of legwork to answer a couple of questions I brought up in the previous video, and expanded upon those story points that were so quickly rushed by. The prologue, though, was a training mission, teaching us how to aim, shoot, combat roll, and order units around, while also being a power trip for a short period of time, which is a really good way of giving us time to adjust to the new controls. Which, I gotta say, not being tied to tank controls anymore feels so fucking good. They tied looking around to where you point with the Wiimote and moving with the Nunchuck, as well making commands much simpler by assigning them to the A button while shooting with the B button, and lock on with Z. This makes the game infinitely better to control than its predecessor, and I found myself having very little issues with it. Once the prologue is done, we are shown the first trick of Battalion Wars 2. The campaigns. Yep, we aren't playing as just the Western Frontier throughout the game. We are playing as each nation, starting with the Solar Empire in the present day. Though we don't know how long it has been between the events of the first and second game. The Solar Empire and the Western Frontier come under attack by a newly introduced nation called the Anglo Isles, a heavily British-inspired force. Here we are introduced to some of the new COs and a few of the old COs from the first game. The Anglos are led by Commander Pierce and Colonel Windsor, who are launching a preemptive strike due to rumors that the Solar Empire has a super weapon and were convinced that it was going to be used against them. Although it was flimsy reasoning, and with Pierce not being 100% sure about the intel, they initiate a devastating opening assault that launches us into Mission 1. The first mission brings us into the aftermath of a bombing attack on our harbor, and we are ordered by Empress Lei Ko to regroup with our battalion and to defend the airfield from Anglos until reinforcements arrive. So basically, we are getting dropped in the first game's Mission 3, showing that Battalion Wars 2 is going to teach you how to use the new controls, but it's assuming you played Battalion Wars 1, which I appreciate. This mission gives us command over grunts, flame veterans, and an anti-air tank, in order to hold off enemy grunts, bombers, and troop transports, which are all pretty easy to deal with if you get a handle on the motion controls. Defending the airfield, though, successfully drops us right into Mission 2. Mission 2 introduces us to our new CO, Admiral Akira, who orders us to defend our naval defense cannons from an enemy lander attack. Wait, what? Naval units? Yep, Battalion Wars 2 introduces us to naval units, slowly of course, starting with landers, a new troop transport which is dropping units off to attack our naval guns. Yes, the naval guns are on land. I didn't name the units, it confused me as well. After pushing the Anglos back into the sea, we learned that the attack was a distraction so that the Anglos could take our nearby naval base. With some help from the Western Frontier, who were nearby at the time, we are able to push the Anglos out of the base and recapture it. Mission 3 is a defensive mission where we are to stop the Anglos from taking the Central Palace, where Empress Lei Ko is stationed. Here we are introduced to two new mechanics, reinforcement pads and the new defense order. Reinforcement helipads are capturable areas where, once captured, we'll call in reinforcements to the area. However, it can only be used once, so it'll be either a good way to reinforce your battalion with more of the same units you already have, or give you new units to help with the mission. Then, there is the new Defend command. If you point and lock onto a structure or flag, you can order individuals, whole units, or your entire battalion to defend that position. This whole mechanic is a fucking godsend! Back in the first game, the only way to truly leave units to defend something was just giving them the hold still command and hope to fuck that they shoot at what comes to them. With this new command, your units will actively defend the position and be proactive in it. Should an enemy unit start to lower the flag, your units will attempt to stop them, and should they succeed, your units will recapture the structure and return it back to your full control. This makes defense missions way more manageable, as I don't need to babysit my units to do their fucking job. This makes defending the palace so fucking easy. Mission 4 is a fun sabotage mission where we get to take control of a recon again, but also get introduced to a unique unit to this mission, a demolitions expert. We are tasked to escort the little guy across the volcano area, taking out enemy missile silos to clear the way for our naval units to come clean up enemy defenses. As soon as the silos are gone, we get Akira riding in on his personal battleship to clean up enemy defenses to let us recapture the island from the Anglos. Mission 5 is the last mission of the Solar Empire campaign, and where we get to take control of frigates and a battleship. Battleships are the aquatic version of artillery tanks, able to bombard enemy positions from afar and go toe-to-toe with other naval units, while frigates are an anti-air unit meant to cover battleships and carriers from air attacks, and another unit will be introduced to down the line. Speaking of air troops, Mission 5 has us defend Western Frontier troop carriers to the last Anglo-controlled airbase within the Solar Empire and recapture it, which we do. And though the Anglos are pushed out, Admiral Akira is doubling down and orders a campaign of retribution on the Anglos, which Empress Lei Ko does not support. She believes there is something more going on here. This, however, leads us to a cutscene where we see a poor orphan boy be shamed by generational trauma, calling him a peace-loving little bitch, until he gets a phone call to give him an excuse to get the Haunted Mirror to stop yelling at him. Apparently, Admiral Akira is invoking the alliance between the Tundrans and the Solar Empire to bring vengeance against the Anglos, which Marshal Nova accepts. This, however, leads us to the unit dossier and concept art. Yeah, remember the ranks in the previous game? I complained before that there wasn't much of a reason to 100% the game, as the only reward was the optional what-if missions. Here, however, if you get all A ranks in a campaign, you get a full army dossier that shows off each army's unique style and units, as well as some fun facts about those units. But if we get all S ranks, we get a reward of concept art. It's always nice to see the work and effort the artists put into the game, and showing what their intent was, but how they had to compromise with the Wii's output. However, I also understand that sometimes people want more for 100% in a game, so what's okay to me won't be okay for someone else. So, moving on. The next campaign is the Western Frontier campaign. However, we aren't continuing the fight against the Anglo Isles. Instead, General Herman takes Brigadier Betty on a trip through the past, as the Anglos' reasoning for attacking the Solar Empire resembles the same reasons the Tundran territories went to war against the Western Frontier 30 years ago. So, this is one of two campaigns where we are taken back in time to experience the events of the Battalion Wars world that were alluded to back in the first game. Here, we take command of the old Western Frontier, pushing the Tundrans out of the borderlands. In the first mission, we need to reclaim the valley from the Tundrans, which includes a barracks, factory, and airbase. This mission shows us that naval units aren't the only new thing they introduced, as these bases we take are also there to support us. By capturing one of these structures, we get new units, and if any of your existing units die, so long as one person survives and the buildings remain under your control, it will continue to spawn new units to reinforce your battalion, which I really like. A lot of these times in these games, we are outnumbered and expected to figure it out. But with these bases, we have some breathing room to experiment and mess up without causing a full mission restart, which is really good if you aren't actively trying to S-rank every mission. Taking the airbase back reveals that the younger Tsar Gorgi believes that the Western Frontier has a super weapon, which shows that history is repeating itself, and that something is very wrong, as someone is stirring up trouble even to the modern day. Mission 2 has us needing to destroy a group of enemy transport copters holding vital intel. Here we are given gunships, and though we fight through Tundra naval defenses and other emplaced positions, we also liberate a prison camp from the Exylvanians, who have digging equipment nearby. Well, we know who's starting shit! Mission 3 is the last mission for the Western Frontier, where we play out the final battle between the Frontier and the Tundrans. But we also clear out another dig site controlled by the Exylvanians, which practically screams at us that Kaiser Vlad is looking for the Staff of Legend, which downplays the reveal in the later cutscenes. But it is an optional part of the mission, so it's a bit more forgivable. Though after completing the mission, we get Herman explaining that Gorgi was a victim of the same hoax that the Anglos were acting upon, but that Kaiser Vlad is making a major move, and he's using this new global conflict to distract the world. Speaking of, how are the Anglos doing?
Pass the salt, would you come under this, good chap?
Yeah, that's to be expected. The third campaign brings us back to the present day, where we play the Anglo Isles defending themselves from the Solar Empire and Tundran counter-invasion. The first mission is retaking our airbase and naval port under the command of Commander Pierce. But wait, I'm also a commander. What gives Pretty Boy over here seniority over me? Either way, it's really weird to be firing upon the Solar Empire when we played them not 3 missions ago. But once we take back our naval port and destroy an enemy sea fort, we move on to Mission 2 and get pretty used to shooting an army that we were just playing as. Mission 2 is a mostly naval engagement where we are to defend a naval base, before we are to reclaim a captured shipyard nearby. Here, we are also given command over submarines. Submarines are an interesting unit. While submerged, they aren't able to be targeted by anything that isn't a submarine or a frigate. This, however, can be really annoying, as the frigate's only way of attacking submarines is by lobbing depth charges at it, and for subs, it comes down to who locks onto who first. Otherwise, submarines can kill enemy battleships in just a couple of seconds, but frigates for some reason take reduced damage from subs, so you can use frigates to protect your harder-hitting battleships. Mission 3 is...
He's also had the nerve to graffiti Windsor's column, our nation's most beloved war memorial.
Oh, that's just fucking petty, Akira. Yep, we are escorting a cleaning squad to the war memorial that Akira has decided to deface and defend, wasting his time, resources, and allies. But once we get the cleaning squad to the statue, we get the last new naval units revealed to us. The Dreadnought. The Dreadnought is a walker unit piloted by a space marine who was mortally... Oh, fuck, sorry. Wrong script. The Naval Dreadnought is the battle station equivalent of the sea, being a dangerous monster to anything on sea and on land, as it's basically 3 battleships fused into one. However, just like the battle station, it's fucking allergic to anything that defies gravity. Once we destroy the Dreadnought, Nova, who is understandably pissed he lost 4 battleships defending a fucking statue, calls Akira cringe and withdraws his army, which, as far as I'm aware, there were only gunships and battleships, and they only appeared twice in this campaign. So, bye, Nova.
It's a feed!
The last mission for the Anglo Isles sees us push the Solar Empire out of the Isles with a battle of endless respawning air units. We need to take 2 helipads, free a POW camp, and then make for the enemy airfield while under constant assault from enemy fighters and gunships. Although we do get our own fighters and bombers, which helps with countering enemy units. Which quickly brings me back to something. Did you know Battalion Wars 2 had an online mode? Yeah, I don't have any footage of it, but basically you and another player would go head to head, either trying to capture each other's bases or hold positions to gain as many points as possible. However, shockingly, we see some armies don't get some units. The Solar Empire, for example, doesn't get bombers or a battle station of their own, while the Anglo Isles only have access to the most basic units in the game. I don't know why some armies get all of the units, while some don't, if it came down to time or balance, or just to make things more interesting for the online mode, but it is a bit head-scratching and annoying that other armies just have an inherent advantage over others. But let's see how the war is going between the Solars and the Anglos.
Insolent dogs! Victory was mine by right!
Yep, that's to be expected. After losing the final battle against Commander Pierce, Akira decides that alcoholism is the way to go. But then the plot gets serious with the reveal of Kaiser Vlad! Yeah, thanks to the Western Frontier campaign, this twist isn't really shocking. But Vlad reveals he poisoned Akira, which, holy shit, we got an actual on-screen kill! But yeah, Vlad reveals that while Nova and the Tundran military were gone, the Exylvanians invaded Tundra and quickly occupied it, leading us into the next campaign! Campaign 4 opens up to the Tundrans defending a gulag containing... Commandant Ubu? But thanks to the Exylvanian assault and that bad fart gas, Vlad is able to free his simpleton of a minion. So cool! This campaign is going to be Exylvania taking over Tundra, right?
Move out, Commander! Reinforce the siege guns! Khaled's forces will reach them in only 3 minutes!
Oh, come on! Yeah, Campaign 4 is another flashback campaign where he plays the Iron Legion in the context of Vlad explaining to Ubel the final days of the Lightning Wars, and how the Iron Legion was so close to world domination until the Solar Empire cheated them with the super weapon. Which, yes, this is really cool that we get to play a power trip campaign for a bit, as the Legion really does feel unstoppable. But I think it would have been more fun playing Exylvania taking over Tundra personally. Mission 1 gives us control of the Legion's all-conquering battle station. And this thing really is a fucking monster. We have to destroy the Solar Empire's solar panel charging stations, which the battle station easily does, pleasing our CO, Lord Ferak, who is Kaiser Vlad's ancestor. Note, This battle station is the same one we destroy in the prologue mission, but this mission also reveals that the battle station itself was a recent design, being field tested during the final days of the war. So that's a fun lore tidbit. Mission 2 is the Legion taking back a mine from the Solar Empire. What? I don't know what else to tell you. Nothing plot important happens here at all. It's just a simple recapture battle. The final mission, however, is the most interesting of all, as it takes place on the same day the Legion would be defeated. Our goal here is to sink the Solar Empire naval assault at the beaches by defending our naval cannons. By retaking a nearby airfield and freeing artillery and infantry POWs, we sink the Imperial naval force. Though in this mission, for some reason, my artillery tanks decided that ramming into enemy units was the best strategy, causing me some issues. But, as I said, the Legion sunk the Imperial naval fleet. So how did the Empire get the win? Well, it's revealed by Vlad that the grunt we played in the tutorial was the sole survivor of the naval assault, and that the Empress at the time had assigned a secret strike force to infiltrate the Legion lines and sneak the staff into the Iron Tower. However, we played the prologue, so we know how that story ends. So, for the past few decades, Vlad has had his forces endlessly searching for the staff of Kalen, hence why we saw Exylvanian forces during the Western Frontier campaign, and that Vlad was responsible for the faulty intelligence that the Tundrans, and now the Anglos, were victims of. Their wars were distractions for Vlad to look for the staff. However, he has now tracked the staff down to a glacier somewhere in Tundran, and he and his forces are close to finding it. But don't forget that the other nations are still around and have reformed the Alliance of Nations, ready to take the fight to the Exylvanians. The last campaign is the Tundrans, liberating their homeland from Exylvanian occupation, while fighting their way to Vlad's final dig site. And oh my god, these final 4 missions are infinitely better than the last 4 missions of Battalion Wars 1. The missions, although difficult, feel completely fair, and anytime something fucked up, it felt like it was my fault 100%. Though the last mission has its own issues, but nothing anywhere near the ballpark of Mission 20 of the first game. Mission 1 has us retaking the nation's capital and stopping the Exylvanians from destroying Gorgi's mausoleum.
What are they doing to my mausoleum? My final resting place? Is that dynamite?
I mean, Ubu, I know you killed the old fuck, but come on! This is just petty. The mission is a brutal, slow grind, as we have to retake an airfield and factory while having very limited infantry units, which makes sense as the Tundran forces are scattered and regrouping. But we also get help from the Western Frontier, who help us retake the memorial site, and as a fun little side objective, you can save a Western Frontier grunt named Hazard from a minefield, which is just a Saving Private Ryan reference. Mission 2 has us taking to the sea again, but this time we command the Tundran's Dreadnought, as we are to sink the Exylvanian fleet and retake the city of Novigrad. This mission is the best example of my problem with the submarines, and how unbalanced they feel, as they do too much damage to anything that isn't a frigate, as evidenced with how fast one sub sank the Exylvanian Dreadnought. But once we sink the fleet and retake Novigrad, we head further north, leading us into Mission 3. Mission 3, again, is another slow and brutal slug match, as we are sent to destroy a research base. But we have to wipe out enemy anti-air towers to clear the way for our bombers to clear out our way to the base. Of course, we blow through the Xers' defenses to the research base, but they bring out 2 battleships they kept in reserve. With some quick work from our bombers, they joined their fellows from Mission 2 at the bottom of the icy sea. However, it appears that they had just enough time for the base to transmit the staff's coordinates to Vlad, which leads us to the final mission. The final mission of the campaign, and the game, gives us command over the Tundran Battle Station, as well as units from each Alliance of Nations armies, which is awesome, getting to command units from other armies as a whole is a really good idea, and this final mission, up to a point, is really fun. It does feel like a last hurrah as we rally our allies and free POWs that are being held nearby, leading us to Kaiser Vlad's mining spider. And once we get there, the problems rear their ugly head. The final part of the mission has enemy strato destroyers, gunships, and fighters endlessly spawn. And although we do get 3 Anglo fighter jets and have a lot of anti-air units, the problem comes down to the mining spider itself. The thing is very clearly supposed to be a difficult final boss, but is really just fucking annoying. For some reason, this thing fires out green beams of energy all over the place, and they do punishing damage to your battle station, which you have to circle around the damn thing to try and reduce the amount of shots that are hitting you. But trying to circle it is a pain, as there are ice blocks you can run into, and it can fuck with the tank's movement, which frees up your enemies and the boss to punish you through no fault of your own. It can be frustrating, as if you lose the battle station, it's a mission fail. So yeah, the final mission is fun, but that final stretch can be fucking painful. However, as we destroy the mining spider, Vlad finds the staff and calls down an orbital bombardment, while he and Ubel flee into the same chasm the staff was in, to save themselves from its fire. The Alliance flees the area to let the beam just pound dirt, and once the bombardment is done, Nova is rightfully angry that the bad guys got away. But we see that Vlad and Ubel are stuck down in the chasm, and comedically are going to be down there for a while. The game ends with a proper celebration, as we get a full military parade, and all the surviving COs salute their troops, and the game ends on a happy note. So that was Battalion Wars 2, a game that is superior to the original by far, and honestly, I see a hidden diamond on the Wii. However, it is very obvious that this game did not sell well, as it only sold over 20,000 copies worldwide, which is not good, especially for a third-party Wii title that Nintendo supported. However, like many games, Battalion Wars 2 has a dedicated fan community, and although small, they do their best to try and keep the flame of the game alive, and I can see why. The game does have its problems still, with AI-controlled units sometimes still messing up, but I noticed that rarely happened. Heck, that incident with my artillery tank acting up was the only time I noticed my units being stupid. The motion controls, although good enough, can still have their obvious downsides. As well, though CEOs are given a bit more room to breathe and talk, they are still either poorly developed characters or come off more as caricatures. But those complaints are really minor. The game is great. The army's got really good visual updates, the quality of life updates are amazing for both commanding your troops, fighting enemies, and UI elements that just make the game so much better to play. Although the Wii is just a GameCube with upgrades, this game's cartoony style holds up pretty well with the new graphics. Seriously, get yourself a Wii U and play this game on HD, and it looks great. Though, I wish I could have played the online mode to get my own footage for it. It's good to see that people are keeping the game alive with friendly matches and Discord servers to organize said matches. Do I want a Battalion Wars 3? Well, of course. I think Battalion Wars is a good game that got buried on the Wii, as the same problems and thinking from the first game plagued it when it comes to consumers. It's a shooter on the Wii. Which, again, most people weren't buying shooters on the Wii. They were buying Mario, Zelda, and other quality titles, or they were grandparents buying shovelware not knowing better. If Battalion Wars were to come back, I think it would need a heavy marketing campaign, and to basically be a remake or a remastered collection for the Switch or Nintendo's upcoming console. But I thank everyone for humoring me and letting me talk about these two games. Battalion Wars was a special series to me in my childhood, and I'm glad I could share it with you guys. Hopefully we can do more. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell icon for notifications. And if you want to see my vids early, consider joining my Patreon. Your support allows me to keep the lights on and make more videos for you guys. See you all next time.
But the torch of destiny still burns brightly for Exylvania. Do you have another match?